From ball retriever owners to slicers to slow players, there's a lot to get mad at in the world of golf. However, this lot becomes as holy as the angels compared to the cheaters and creative scorekeepers that threaten the game. The culture surrounding golf is one of honesty and camaraderie, especially as their players rely on one another for checks and balances. As a result, being called a cheater is a grave accusation in golf and a label that could potentially ruin or color your career. You'd think that the weight of such a crime would deter golfers from cheating, but like in any other sport, there have been athletes who clamor for victory by all means possible and don't mind who they have to trample to achieve their selfish goals. It's why controversies in the sport almost sound like unsolved crime mysteries, with tee shots miraculously appearing in favorable spots, eraser-smudged scorecards, and unbelievably flat grounds in otherwise rough areas. In this video, we'll be exploring golfers who have been caught cheating. We begin with Colin Montgomerie. Colin Montgomerie struck his ball into a bunker on the 14th hole during the 2004 Indonesian Open. The only problem was that the ball ended up in a rather awkward position. Everyone watched the golfer struggle to find a good enough stance to get another strike in. When he eventually did, it was the most peculiar stance ever. He had one foot on the sand and the other out. Coincidentally, the heavens chose this moment to open up and it rained down in sheets. The play was stopped, and Montgomerie left his ball as is, exiting the course with everyone else. When play resumed the following morning, everyone was quite astonished to find Montgomerie in a more comfortable stance than the previous day. This time, he had both feet firmly on solid ground rather than sand. Although the water had moved the ball during the rain, the player attempted to take the ball back to its original position by deciding a foot closer to the edge of the hazard was a better shot. While officials didn't penalize him and instead validated the move, brows were firmly raised. Montgomerie wound up donating his winnings to charity to put the controversy behind him. Smart man. Although the next player was more of a pain in the neck, Gary Player. There are fewer golfers more controversial than Gary Player. Although he won the 1974 Royal Lytham Open Championship by a splendid margin, his victory was shrouded in controversies. The allegations against Player were that his strike into the penultimate hole during the final round of the event wasn't the same ball that entered the rough. Instead, his caddy, Rabbit Dyer, had dropped the ball into a more favorable position when they couldn't find the original ball. Of course, Player defended himself, stating that multiple TV cameras were covering the incident to rule out any foul play. He detailed the incident in his book, To Be the Best, explaining how he painstakingly searched for the ball in the rough on his hands and knees before the caddy found the ball. Although he'd go on to win the event, surviving rumors suggest that the original ball was eventually found in the rough and now sits daintily in a safe. Whether or not that was the case, the 1974 Royal Lytham was Player's last victory in the Open. Cheating controversies didn't stop there, though. He was soon publicly accused of cheating in the skins game by Tom Watson. Although Watson would later apologize for his uncharacteristic approach, he maintained that Player cheated. Unfortunately, Player got away with it both times. One player who wasn't so lucky, though, was Justin Doden. At the Commissionaire's Ottawa Open during the PGA Tour Canada, Justin Doden got caught cheating. By the end of the second round of the event, he'd replaced the double bogey scored on the 18th hole with a par in the hopes of making the cut. Two other competitors who watched him play pointed out the difference, and Doden took the L, withdrawing from the tournament immediately. He'd later take to social media to own up to his cheating and apologize, calling it the biggest mistake of his life. But one player who wasn't so gracious in his approach was Phil Mickelson. During the Summer U.S. Open Championship in 2018, a strange sight unfolded at the upstate New York Golf Club in Shinnecock Hills, where the event was held. On the 13th green on day 3 of the tournament, Phil Mickelson putted towards the hole. As the ball rolled across the course, Mickelson realized he'd struck it a bit too hard, that it might miss the hole and leave him with an even longer putt. The most bizarre thing happened next. He sprinted after the ball and hit it back across the green before it came to a stop. Naturally, the entire course was in an uproar. But rather than disqualify him for breaching one of the cardinal rules of golf, Mickelson got away with a 2-stroke penalty. That didn't stop some from trying to defend the golfer, though, stating that the course was difficult due to its setup at Shinnecock Hills. Mickelson may have had his backers, but no one came to this golfer's rescue, Ed "Porky" Oliver. 4 rounds into the 1940 U.S. Open, Ed "Porky" Oliver was tied for first with 2 other competitors, Lawson Little and Gene Sarazen. However, before the sudden death phase commenced to determine the overall winner, Oliver was promptly disqualified. The reason was simple. A storm looked set to hit the course during the 4th round. Rather than wait for the green light to begin the tee time, he went ahead to avoid the storm altogether. Talk about jumping the gun. While Oliver took his punishment gracefully, this next golfer took the tour organizers to court. Jane Blalock. Jane Blalock was one of the most decorated players in the LPGA Tour. In a career spanning almost 20 years, she won 34 tournaments and was one of the faces of the sport in her time. Despite her incredible achievements, she was almost always associated with cheating for the duration of her career. In fact, one such incident resulted in a heated cheating scandal that rocked the LPGA. Blalock won the Dinah Shore Colgate Winners' Circle in 1972, but was ultimately accused a few weeks afterwards of cheating. During the tournament held at the Bluegrass Invitational in Kentucky, the accusation was that Blalock had incorrectly replaced her ball marker. The LPGA ran an investigation, found her guilty, and slapped her with a fine and suspension. Blalock did not take this week, instead dragging the LPGA to court. The suit dragged on for 3 years until it was ultimately ruled in her favor in 1975. The ruling sided with Blalock on technical grounds. For the rest of her career, though, she could never completely shake accusations of cheating. Speaking of infamous cheating scandals, this golfer is one of the most recent cases. Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed was involved in a cheating scandal during the 2019 World Hero Challenge. The golfer struck a ball into a bunker and was found altering the sand to get a better swing. Reed was found moving sand behind his ball while pretending to make practice swings. He was promptly penalized with 2 penalty strokes. But Reed didn't seem to have learned from his 2019 errors because he repeated something similar merely 2 years later. In the 3rd round of the 2021 Farmers Insurance Open, Reed was in the lead at the tournament with 4 shots. Then, on the 10th hole, his ball rolled into the rough. What he did next was mind-blowing. Reed picked up the ball, claiming there was no bounce and that it had embedded into the ground instead. He probably didn't count on video evidence capturing the ball's bounce. Reed seemed to have gone too far with his scandals because many of his colleagues were mad at him for the latest infringement. Another player caught red-handed was Michelle Wie. Over in the LPGA, Michelle Wie was a serial offender who was always getting accused of cheating. At the Kia Classic at La Costa, she was called into the officials' tent to review a potential infraction. Upon reviewing the penalty, she tried to offer an alibi to get out of it. But the official wasn't having it, and she was penalized 2 strokes instead. What had happened was that Wie grounded her club in a hazard after making a shot out of the water during the 11th hole in the final round. Wie had kept her right foot in the water as she prepared to stroke her submerged ball. What followed next was a spray of water, after which the ball rolled out a few inches into the rough. At this point, Wie let her club touch the ground. An LPGA rules official came to notify her of the penalty a while later. Wie finished her game before walking towards a TV truck to review the video with other officials. She'd later defend herself, explaining as follows: "They interpreted it differently than what I felt. I knew that I did ground the club. At the same time, I knew that I felt off balance. I closed my eyes and hit the shot and grounded my club so I wouldn't fall into the water while wearing a white skirt." Here's another player who got caught in 4K, Vijay Singh. For Singh's scandal, we go back to the Indonesian Open in 1985, where he was caught erasing a stroke from his scorecard. He intended to lessen his strokes and increase his chances of making the cut. His transgression was picked up by the television broadcast on ground. Unlike Wie, though, Singh didn't get a penalty. He was immediately kicked off the tournament. The Southeast Asian Golf Federation took things a step further and suspended him for life. Surprisingly, this didn't mean the end of his professional career. And now for a golfer considered one of the biggest cheaters in the sport, Kenny Perry. Kenny Perry finished the 1996 U.S. PGA Championships and 2009 Masters Tournament as a runner-up in both competitions. But before his high-placed finish in 2009, he got caught in a controversy about the state of his ball at a different event. See, at the Players' Championships at TPC Sawgrass, Perry was accused of moving his ball slightly to get a better lie in the rough for a strike. What seemed like a simple accusation soon ballooned into a huge scandal at the time and loomed over his career for the longest time. However, despite being regarded as a cheater, there had been no actual proof that Perry intentionally moved his ball. That's the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As always, I'll see you in the next one.